The rain slammed against the cracked windows of a worn-down apartment on the rough side of town, each drop sounding like a drum of warning. Inside, a man sat hunched over his phone, fingers trembling as he typed, eyes red from exhaustion. Daniel Kohler, single father, juggling 2 grueling jobs just to put food on the table for his 3-year-old daughter. Lily was running out of options. Tonight, it wasn't overdue rent or unpaid bills that haunted him. Tonight, it was desperation. Lily had been sick for weeks. Doctors had offered vague reassurances, but no real answers, and the mounting medical bills were crushing him. Daniel's hands shook as he poured everything into a message, words raw and pleading, the kind only a parent terrified of losing their child could write. Please, I don't know what else to do. I just need help to keep her alive. He hit send, letting out a shaky breath, relief flooding him at the thought that at least anyone, might hear his cry. But he hadn't sent it to his friend. The message had gone to the wrong number that belonged to Amelia Grant, one of the city's most powerful CEOs, a woman whose name dominated headlines, whose face graced glossy magazine covers, and whose fortune was the kind Daniel had only ever imagined in dreams. When Amelia's phone buzzed that night, it lit up with the desperate plea of a stranger she had never met. For a long moment, she almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But something in the words stopped her cold, the raw honesty, the love in every line. She's the only reason I'm still standing. I'll do anything to keep her safe. Amelia leaned back in her sleek office chair, her eyes drawn to the twinkling city lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. For the first time in years, something tugged at her heart. Her life had always been a careful armor of boardrooms, profit charts, and meticulous schedules. Success was everything, her shield, her identity. Yet buried deep beneath that polished exterior was a wound she had never healed, the child she had lost, the one she never got to hold. And now, across the city, a stranger's words were opening a door she thought long closed. She didn't reply. Not yet. Hours later, her phone rang again, an unknown hospital number flashing across the screen, and suddenly the night felt heavier, more urgent. Ems Grant. We have you listed as the emergency contact for a little girl, Lily Cole. Her father isn't answering. Can you come? Amelia froze. Emergency contact. She didn't know any Lily Cole. She didn't know this man at all. But then, in an instant, her mind went back to the text, the desperate plea from the father, the sick child. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and plunged into the storm, the rain soaking her as she ran, urgency propelling her forward. At St. Mary's Hospital, the sharp antiseptic sting hit her as she rushed down the sterile, echoing hallways. Her heels clicked rapidly against the tiles, the sound like a countdown to something unknown. She didn't know what awaited her. She only knew she had to see it. When she pushed open the door to a small pediatric room, her chest tightened. There, lying pale and fragile beneath the hospital sheets, was a little girl with chestnut curls, wide, tired eyes, and a soft whimper escaping her lips. Beside her, Daniel held her tiny fingers in a grip that was equal parts love and desperation, whispering promises he could barely keep together through the tears he tried so hard to hide. Daniel looked up, startled, his face etched with exhaustion and worry. Who are you? His voice was rough, raw from sleepless nights and too many battles fought alone. Amelia hesitated, unsure how to explain herself. The hospital called. They said I was listed as an emergency contact. Daniel's eyes widened, confusion flaring across his face. Then realization hit. He fumbled with his phone, scrolling frantically, and let out a strangled groan. No, this can't be. I must have typed your number wrong when they asked for a backup contact. For a moment, they just stared at each other, two strangers caught in a twist of fate. Then Lily stirred, her small voice breaking the tension. "Daddy, who's the lady?" Amelia stepped closer, her heart aching at the child's fragility, the weight of helplessness in those wide eyes. "Just a friend," she whispered softly, kneeling near the bed, careful not to frighten her. And in that fragile, fleeting moment, Amelia made a choice she didn't fully understand yet. She stayed. 2 hours bled into days. She found herself returning to the hospital again and again, bringing small meals Daniel couldn't afford, offering quiet comfort in ways words could not. Amelia paid for the tests when insurance fell short, quietly covering the gaps Daniel couldn't. She even sat beside Lily's bed in the evenings, reading soft bedtime stories when Daniel slipped out to work his exhausting night shift. At first, Daniel pushed back, pride tightening around him like armor. "I don't need your charity," he snapped one evening, his voice sharp enough to cut. But Amelia didn't flinch. She met his eyes, steady and unshaken. "This isn't charity," she said calmly. "This is humanity. You asked the universe for help. Maybe this is the answer you didn't expect." Slowly, painfully, the walls around him began to crack. Daniel started sharing pieces of his life, how his wife had died in childbirth, how every day since felt like a fight he was barely winning, how Lily's little smile was the only thing that kept him from collapsing completely, and Amelia. She opened up to... For the first time in years, she allowed herself to speak about the child she had lost, the loneliness behind her success, the echo of emptiness she could never silence. No matter how high she climbed or how many trophies she collected, two broken souls, stitched together by a wrong number, but their fragile connection shattered one night. When the doctor delivered the news they both feared, Lily's condition had worsened. She had a rare heart defect, one that required immediate surgery, the kind with a price tag higher than anything Daniel could begin to imagine. Daniel broke. Completely, he walked out into the storm, stumbling into the freezing rain, fists clenched as he screamed into the night. "Why her? Why not me? Take me instead." His voice cracked, his body shaking with sobs so raw they seemed to tear him apart. A few feet away, Amelia stood silently, feeling every ounce of his pain like it was her own. She had the resources. She had the influence. And for the first time in her life, she didn't hesitate. The next morning, Amelia signed the papers. All of them. She covered the full cost of the surgery, no questions, no conditions. Daniel was furious. "You can't just buy your way into our lives," he snapped, anger and fear twisting together. Amelia's eyes filled, her voice trembling. "I'm not trying to buy anything," she whispered. I'm not buying anything," Amelia said softly, her eyes locked on his. "I'm saving her because if I had the chance to save my own child, I would have given everything. Don't take this from me." The fight dissolved into silence. For the first time, Daniel saw her not as a billionaire, not as a stranger, but as a woman who carried her own scars, her own heartbreak. The surgery was long. Hours stretched like lifetimes. Daniel and Amelia sat side by side in the sterile waiting room, their hands brushing lightly with each movement, yet neither dared pull away. Every minute felt like a lifetime, every sound magnified by fear. Then the surgeon appeared, walking in with a rare, triumphant smile. Lily was going to survive. Daniel crumpled into his chair, tears streaming freely as he covered his face, unable to speak. Amelia reached out, placing her hand gently on his shoulder, grounding him. "She's going to live," she whispered, her own voice trembling, carrying relief, hope, and something deeper. When Lily awoke, days later, her first words were soft but certain. "Daddy." The lady stayed, and Amelia did. She stayed through every stage of recovery, through laughter and tears, through nights that felt endless and mornings that promised hope. She stayed until staying felt as natural as breathing, until her presence in their lives was no longer a question. Months later, Lily ran freely through a sunlit park, her laughter ringing like tiny bells. Daniel sat on a bench, watching, his arm brushing lightly against Amelia's. Neither knew exactly what they were to each other, yet friends. Maybe more, but one truth was undeniable. Sometimes family isn't something you choose, and sometimes it arrives through the most unexpected mistakes.